Support for this podcast comes from the law firm of Davis Malm. Whether you're a developer, property owner, manager, or commercial tenant, their real estate attorneys know the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com.
WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Comment. Last week, at-large Boston City Councilor Ruthzee Louijeune was elected by her peers to be the new president of the Boston City Council. Her new leadership position follows her November re-election to her second term on the council. Councilor Louijeune takes over leadership of the council from former Boston City Councilor Ed Flynn, and she is the first Haitian-American to serve in the position. Boston City Council President Ruthzee Louijeune is here with me. Councilor Louijeune, thank you so much for joining us on The Comment, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you for having me, Daryl. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, yeah. So let's get right into it. What are the top issues you plan to champion as you lead the Boston City Council?
We are a city that is currently experiencing a housing crisis. Housing affordability is affecting a lot of our city. We are a city of 65% of the residents are renters. And so we have to tackle building more affordable housing, and we have to tackle making the housing that we do have, making it more affordable. We do that by confronting upfront costs when you're renting an apartment, having to, oftentimes first month, last month security, broker's fees. We're trying to see if we can tackle that. Those upfront costs can often be a barrier for renters. We're also going to continue working with our community land trust and nonprofit developers to see if we can further assist them in buying buildings that would otherwise be subject to the speculative market and be subject to being purchased in the private market solely by those who have a profit motive. We have our schools that continue to have challenges. There are some great examples of things that BPS is doing pretty well, but there are things that we have to do better to ensure that each and every one of our students in all of our neighborhoods can live up to their full potential. We have a climate crisis on our doorstep, and even as we're thinking about buildings in our Boston Public Schools, how do we do so in a way that is green-friendly, that our buildings are resilient, and that are meeting the climate needs? So there are a lot of issues to tackle, big and small. I care deeply about trash pickup in all of our neighborhoods. And I think that's what the residents of Boston want us to tackle. They want us to tackle the big and small issues.
Understood. Counselor, I got to say, when you talk about housing, you're speaking my language. I am one of the 65%.
Yeah.
Just take us through some of the first actionable steps you want to do to address the housing crisis in the city.
There's not going to be one thing that's going to solve the housing crisis.
Right.
We currently have a home rule petition before the State House, the real estate transfer fee that would create on the transfer of the sale of properties of $2 million or more. We would get a transfer fee that would put money into our affordable housing trust to help us build more affordable housing. That's currently on Beacon Hill. It would generate a lot of revenue for the construction of affordable housing. I've testified on it. It passed the city council. We're going to hold hearings on how we tackle upfront rental costs. And we're going to bring everyone to the table to see, are there ways that we can defray the costs on individual tenants? If you have to pay first, last security, and broker's fees, you're basically, that if you have that money lying around, you might as well think about a down payment, right? And we also want to make sure that our families are able to make home ownership a reality. We currently have the acquisition opportunity program that's the pool of money that we use to help nonprofits and community land trusts purchase these buildings. There's effort for us to have something similar on the statewide level, being led by the Greater Boston Community Land Trust Network. So, continued partnership with community, because all good things and all good ideas really do start in community. And it's up to us as elected officials to bear them to fruition. We did it last term as well with the inclusionary development policy, which is the policy that requires developers, when they're building these market rate luxury developments, requires a set aside for affordable housing. We increased that from 13% to 17% plus 3% set aside for those with vouchers at a 20% threshold for affordability at market rate housing. So we've been doing the work, and we're going to continue to have those conversations to see how we can deepen affordability throughout the city and how we can get more housing built, especially around our transit hubs.
Now, I want to jump to a different subject, to the council itself. Lately, Boston City Council has been known to be, pretty divided. I'm curious to know, how do you plan to promote more unity amongst the council?
Well, I think that there are so many things that we can do. Part of it is, we have new counselors coming in who come with a, different energy, excitement, still rooted in the idea of how do we address issues of equity. And I think we are going to disagree, and we are going to disagree vehemently about a number of issues, right? Like, people, I always like to define equity because it needs to be centered in the work that we do about the corrective action we take on a policy level to correct for our past policy harms. People are going to disagree at the speed of that. People are going to confuse equity with equality, right? They're going to confuse the intentionality that we need to bring to these discussions. And we see it happening around the country with efforts to diversity, equity, and inclusion being under attack. And so it requires us to be steadfast in our commitment to reversing and to addressing past harms, to really transforming our spaces to be more equitable and inclusive. But we can do that without personal attacks and without, making people feel unsafe and unwelcome in certain spaces. And that's what the charge is. And I think we do that every day. Trainings. When I leave here, I'm headed to City Hall, and we're going to have our first set of trainings for our new and seasoned counselors about best practices, about how we make things work. And what I'm interested in is the work and doing the work. And I think a lot of my colleagues come to this space with that energy. We're going to disagree. We're going to, sometimes spar publicly on issues of policy. But I think that we can still, find ways of grabbing a lunch together and grabbing a drink together and asking each other about how their day is going. And I think that will go a long way in just cultivating a healthier environment.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Politics has never been stranger or more online, which is why the politics team at Wired is making a new show, Wired Politics Lab. It's all about how to navigate the endless stream of news and information and what to look out for. Each week on the show, we'll dig into far-right platforms, AI chatbots, influencer campaigns, and so much more. Wired Politics Lab launches Thursday, April 11th. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back with more from Boston City Council President Ruthzee Louijeune. Why do you think your council peers elected you? Why do you think they felt like you were the best leader for the council at this time?
I just think I try to listen to everyone. I think last term, my colleagues voted me. I was not looking to be the leader on redistricting once the federal court sent it back to the city council, but it did land in my lap, and I used all of who I am as a lawyer who's worked in the redistricting space, as a Black woman, as someone who cares deeply about community and about making sure that we are continuing the march forward, that, I listen to everyone, and that my goal is not to make, not even myself, 100% happy. How do we try to find sliding scales of happiness among my colleagues so that they can go back to their constituents and say, and my constituents too, because I'm at large and I represent everyone, that this is what I was able to win for you. We didn't get everything, but we got enough to make us content. And I think that's the work of politics. And I think we've gotten so far apart on the national level. Gerrymandering has also made it more difficult to have civil conversations across the aisle. And I'm not saying the other aisle is always right. I'm a progressive. I care deeply about pushing our city and our country forward. I just think that the tone and the tenor of politics has just been a nightmare for those in it and for those watching it.
And I just want to say for the listener, when you talk about redistricting, you're referencing your leadership in a push over the summer to draw a new district map for the city after a previous map was overturned by a federal judge. I just want to throw that out there for the listener. Councilor, you are the first Haitian-American to serve as Boston City Council president.
And the first Haitian person on the Boston City Council should be, on the citywide level. You know what I mean? So,
right. I mean, that's big first, right?
Yeah.
You've become the city council president, shortly before Harvard's first Black president, Claudine Gay, just resigned. And I'm bringing up Harvard because you are a Harvard alum. And what happened with Claudine Gay was kind of this reminder to a lot of Black folks, particularly those in high-profile positions, just how vulnerable they can be in some of these positions, right? And I'm just curious to know, as a Black woman, as the daughter of Haitian immigrants, how are you thinking about leadership, on the legislative body for this city?
That's a great question. And, Daryl, I'm the first, I'm first Haitian-American on the council. I'm the first Haitian-American city council president, but I'm not the first Black woman. That was a road that was paved by now Attorney General Andrea Campbell, by former Mayor Kim Janey. I'm not the first Black woman on the council. We have Ayanna Pressley, who paved the way, and we have all the women I mentioned, and State Senator Lydia Edwards. There are others who have come before me. And so oftentimes the first, first in Ayanna, the first in Andrea as the president of the council, you take a lot of heat. There's a lot of setbacks and a lot of challenges, and they don't go away. Me as a third Black woman to lead the council, the challenges are still there. And I look at, Claudine Gay, first Black woman to lead Harvard, Haitian-American herself. I think about how difficult and dangerous it can be in leadership right now, and how oftentimes the first sometimes don't get to go all the way, and how even in that attempt, there is a tremendous legacy. But I try not to overthink it in some ways. I try to stay true to who I am, be led by my moral compass, have a strong community of support whenever there's an issue that comes up, having people that I can turn to for guidance and advice, and being, strong in who I am. But also, I will always say that, I don't have all the answers, and I believe in myself, but I can admit that I'm not always right. And what it takes to do that self-reflection in leadership, I think, is really important, because leadership has to be a lot about listening and changing and admission when things aren't going the right way. And I hope to be that type of leader. And I think that's why my colleagues sort of looked at me, because they know that I'm strong, but I can also take feedback and correct course. I am deeply saddened by what happened to President Gay. I was at her inauguration as an alum, as an elected official. There was such a joy and deep pride in the Haitian community, and there will continue to be, right? Her legacy is still that of having been the first Black woman to lead Harvard and the first person to assume a difficult role. It's not an elected position, but it is still one that is a very public one and that is very challenging. And I hope that we can find ways of protecting our leaders in these positions, because this work, leadership as a Black woman, is not for the faint of heart. It is a calling to serve, and it is a calling to serve and to show up for our neighbors. And I hope that we get better at supporting our leaders. I think about how, for me, absurd it is that DEI efforts are under attack, because I always talk about diversity as one of normal. It's a work of normalization. How do we normalize having inclusive spaces where everyone feels welcome and invited to the table? And not everyone is going to be happy about that. Those who have been comfortable with power and privilege are made uncomfortable by conversations about equity, conversations about diversity and normalization. But we must still have it, and we must still do the work to make sure that resources are being abundantly provided to those who have been historically excluded, to make sure that our spaces are inviting and that we are reckoning with the truth of our country and who we are as a country that was founded in turmoil, that was founded by taking away land from our indigenous people, that was founded on the backs of enslaved folks, right? And who we continue to fail after making some progress during Reconstruction with the Freedmen's Bureau. But again, we need to learn from that era to learn about what happens when folks are saying, okay, we've done enough, when we really haven't even scratched the surface.
Understood. Counselor, thank you so very much for coming through to The Common. We really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Please invite me back.
Absolutely. That's Boston City Councilor at Large and President of the Boston City Council, Ruthzee Louijeune. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and I will talk to you tomorrow.